Charlie Lindgren's rise to the top. He went from a virtual unknown netminder to one of the best netminders in the NHL. Let's discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about Charlie Lindgren's rise to the top. It was just a few years ago. He was in the Canadiens organization and was looking for a way to break out. And now that he's on the Capitals, he has been one of the key ingredients to the Capitals' success. I'll talk about that a little bit later. We will talk about how Ryan Leonard continues to dominate in the NCAA and when he'll be ready for the Capitals. And then we will talk about notes from Monday's practice. But just to get it going here, talking about Charlie Lindgren, it's interesting as we take a look at the netminder position to start the season. I think that everyone had Darcy Kuemper circled for being the number one netminder. Of course, Stanley Cup winner. He's got the history. He's got the pedigree. He's got the big contract. But then something strange happened. Darcy Kuemper faltered this season. Statistically, one of his worst seasons in his entire career. And this improbable star emerged in the name of Charlie Lindgren. Kind of an unknown commodity around the NHL. But now is one of the premier netminders and was one of the most sought-after netminders on the trade deadline. What will his future be on the Capitals? I guess we don't know. I think I know for sure, at least for this season, he is going to be key in their push. And if this team does well, you got to know that it's going to be done on the back of Charlie Lindgren, holding it down a net, being that brick wall, saying the puck's not getting past me. It's his net. No one's going to challenge him for that. So unless he gets injured, it's his net, at least for this season. Beyond this season, I guess we don't know. And there was an article that I was reading today by Pierre LeBrun in The Athletic talking about Charlie Lindgren and kind of where he started from. Started out in the Canadiens organization and kind of thought he was trapped there and was looking to break out. Then went to the St. Louis Blues and then, of course, joined the Capitals. And, well, the rest is history. We know what Lindgren means to this team, but it wasn't too long ago that he was on the outside looking in with his hopes of getting an everyday role on the NHL. He was playing in the Habs organization and was looking for a way to get his hockey career on track. And sometimes that happens. I think you can take a look at the Capitals and the Hershey Bears. It's a bit of a logjam in the netminding department. You got to think that Hunter Shepard, Clay Stevenson, they could most likely find a job in the NHL if they really wanted to. It's just they're kind of stuck and they're waiting for their chance. Think of Braden Holtby. Think of these different netminders where injury kind of ushered in the next wave of netminder. You take a look at Charlie Lindgren. He got his opportunity because Darcy Kuemper faltered. So that is oftentimes what needs to happen. There needs to be certain inroads and opportunities. And the big thing is seizing the opportunity. He was playing in the Habs organization, was looking to break out. So what changed in his career at 30 that was missing when he was 27. Was it the Caps taking a flyer on him or being in the right headspace? I think it's a mixture of both, said Lindgren, a native of Lakeville, Minnesota. First thing is the opportunity. I'm getting a chance now to play a lot more games in a row. That's been amazing. It helps a lot. Any goalie will tell you it's easier to play 4 or 5 games in a row than to play once every 2-3 weeks. You can get in a rhythm that way. And also, I'm 30 years old now, definitely more mature. Experience always helps. That can be one of the most important traits to success. And, you got to think, at least to a certain extent, maybe that is the issue with Darcy Kemper. He's on the shelf a lot of the time. And then when he's thrust into action, let's be honest, he's a little bit rusty. And it's an interesting case because I don't think that, Darcy has necessarily lost his skill set. I just think that he could use some more reps. But with that being said, his last couple starts have been pretty poor. And at this point of the season, I don't think the Capitals can risk putting in a question mark. That's why they go with the sure thing. He admits he had hard time seeing light at the end of the tunnel in Montreal. When I left Montreal to go to St. Louis, I really needed a fresh start. Things started to get stale in Montreal. I was coming off the taxi squad year during the pandemic when teams carried 3 goalies, where all I did was push myself. That was it. I didn't really have any coaching or help. It was up to me. I had to choose. Do I want to be the best Charlie Lindgren I can be, or do I want to sit and pout and be upset about the situation? Mental toughness is paramount for netminders. If you get rattled, you're done. And if you continue to get rattled, you are done. I've said it before that oftentimes the guys that throw tantrums in the tunnel, break their hockey sticks, those are not the guys that have the composure for what it needs to be in the National Hockey League. And of course, they're competitive. It's going to happen, just based here and there. But you take a look at some of the netminders that have struggled. It's the ones that struggle with composure. Think Swayman, facing a double minor, had a grin on his face. That is what you need to have to be a big name netminder in the National Hockey League, is composure and taking on the challenge. I really look to take it in my own hands and try to work as hard as I can in that taxi squad year. He got one of his breaks with the Blues, a 1-year deal in July 2021 with the Blues, which paid him the NHL minimum of $750,000 in St. Louis and $300,000 in the AHL. Turned out to be the salvation moment he was looking for. I got a chance to play with St. Louis and Springfield on a really good American League team. We had a lot of wins and got to play with Joel Hofford, who I think the world of, and we got to have a run to the Calder Cup finals. And it was one of the names that other people were familiar with. I heard Charlie Lindgren's name circulated after Samsonov and Vanacek. The Capitals cut ties. They weren't given a qualifying offer. And certain people were floating the name of Charlie Lindgren around. And I'm going to be honest, it wasn't a netminder that I was real familiar with. I recognized the name. I didn't know a whole lot more about him other than that. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess that's pretty good. We got Darcy Kemper, so at least we're in a good position in that regard. And listen, Charlie's probably not going to have to play that often anyway. And we take a look at last season. December saved the Capitals bacon and then faltered a little bit. But this is the season. We're not talking about the past anymore. This is the season that he has played so well. And then he finally found his home in Washington. They signed Lindgren to a 3-year deal worth $1.1 million a season. It's turned out to be a rather savvy deal. Rather liked his character and competitiveness, Caps general manager Brian McClellan said when asked last week about what he remembers Caps wanting to sign Lindgren. For me, it was security. Lindgren said, I love the DC area. I couldn't be happier. My wife loves it here. It's just a really comfortable place to be. Charlie Lindgren is 21, 13, and 6 with a 2.71 goals against average and a .911 save percentage and 5 shutouts this season. This piece was from a couple days ago by Pierre LeBron. A good interview, a good piece to read on Charlie Lindgren, on where he got his start. And that's all what it's all about: putting in the effort, putting in the work, and good things will happen. If you are worth your salt, if you've got a good skill set, you are going to find your way at some point. Sometimes it takes a while. I have no doubt in my mind that at some point, Hunter Shepard and Clay Stevenson will work their way up. It's just a difficult position. And as we take a look at the netminder position, I'm in love with Charlie Lindgren. I love what he means for this team. But the Capitals are in an interesting position where they want to add assets. They are on the cusp of getting, kind of fully into a rebuild. And they look at players that hold value. Charlie Lindgren holds a good amount of value. Signed a cheap deal, has 1 year left on his deal. The Capitals could probably fetch a really great return. And people have asked, well, why him? Well, why him? Well, Darcy Kemper, that I think the Capitals would love the idea of moving Darcy Kemper. It's just there's the term on his contract, the amount that he's getting paid. But I think the Capitals would be listening to offers. And what makes it interesting and kind of puts the Capitals in the catbird seat is that they have really great options in Hunter Shepard, number one in the AHL, and Clay Stevenson, number two. I would like a scenario, I guess, if Charlie Lindgren could stay on this team, but if it meant the Capitals got better all around, say they were able to get that top six forward that we've heard about for over a year, would you entertain that, knowing that you have competent netminders down in Hershey? I would. And that's the hard thing is sometimes these are hard decisions to make. Sometimes you fall in love with these players. And I think that, you take a look at Ovechkin and Wilson and Oshie and Carlson. There's a great fondness that you followed these players for so many years. But sometimes you kind of have to look at the bigger picture. If you are a Nationals fan, it was tough when the Nationals traded Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Josh Bell. But take a look at the return that they got for him. Are those players, rather, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, those kind of things, CJ Abrams, Keibert Ruiz, that all of a sudden the Nationals are going to be in a good position for years. Those are the hard moves that I'm talking about. Do you think Nationals fans were in love with the idea of trading Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, Juan Soto, or Josh Bell? Absolutely not. And if you're a Nationals fan, you love those players, but look at what they got in return. James Wood, who is an absolute stud. You take a look at Dylan Cruz and Brady House and CJ Abrams, the Nats are going to be great. What I'm talking about here is the Capitals could take a page from the Nationals, and they're not playing the best baseball they've ever played, but they're on the cusp of it. Listen, the Capitals are going to have to get involved in a rebuild at some point, and sometimes you're going to have to move some big assets to get some big assets. That's just the way it works. All right, so coming up here, we will talk about how Ryan Leonard isn't done. I've talked about him on the show, and we're like, okay, he did a good job, and I can stop talking about that. Oh, no, he continues to keep rolling and gets me more and more excited about the possibility of what he will mean for this team. Let's talk about him a little bit more straight ahead. The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel's making it even more exciting to get in on the action because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on the tourney with the MLB, NBA, NHL, and so much more. Visit fanduel.com/locked on and make your first big win. Listen, sometimes you're watching these games and you're not that into it. Open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, it's that much more exciting. So check out fanduel.com/locked on. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Ryan Leonard continues to dominate. I did a show not so long ago, and I'm like, well, that's the Ryan Leonard news for now. Oh, no. He continues to keep rolling. He continues to keep making a case that he should be on the Capitals right now or whenever they wrap up the end of the season. They're at Boston College, and if they make it to the playoffs, could something crazy happen and join this team like an entry-level deal towards the end of the year. I don't know. I don't want to get ahead of myself. And there's all kinds of things that have been said that, he wants to, spend some more time in college. He doesn't want to rush it. Brian McClellan has said that he doesn't want to rush him. But Brian McClellan said, hey, what I saw last fall, good to go. If he wants to go pro, let's make it happen. The ball is in Leonard's court right now. What he wants to do, would that be something that would happen? But how he's playing right now, that's what we're going to talk about here next. Ryan Leonard continues to dominate as the calls for him to join the Caps sooner than later intensifies. Through 39 NCAA games so far, he has 31 goals and 28 assists for 59 points. The Caps took Leonard 8th overall in the 2023 NHL draft. Ending all of the talk, was it the right guy? We talked about Matvei Mishkov. We've talked about Leonard. We've talked about other players. Listen, Ryan Leonard was the absolute perfect guy, and we'll see that in years to come. I'm kind of being hyperbolic here. I don't think that he would necessarily join the Capitals at the end of the season. Not impossible, improbable, but potentially next fall. It is something that could potentially happen. But as for right now, let's just talk about how he's killing it for Boston College. Leonard was huge Sunday to send the Boston College Eagles to the NCAA Frozen Four. Leonard was huge in taking down the defending champion Quinnipiac Bobcats 5-4 in overtime. And he was knocking it out of the park, killing it. I caught the highlight package. I wasn't able to watch the whole game, but quite something. Leonard scored twice. He also broke a record for Boston College, passing Brian Giunta for the most goals scored by a BC freshman with his 30th and 31st goals of the season. Not done. Steamrolling it, killing it. And at the end of the day, even if he doesn't join the Capitals at the end of this season, or worst case scenario next season, he continues to work on his game, and we can kind of sit back and wow, that's going to be really great to see on the Capitals someday. Leonard was huge, displaying his snarl and great skating, and was responsible with the puck and without the puck, and drew a penalty. Through 2 playoff games so far, Leonard has 4 goals and an assist along with 5 shots. The outcry for him to join the Caps sooner than later by Caps fans intensifies as we can envision him in a Capitals jersey already. I think that would look pretty good on him, and already kind of thinking where he would fit into the lineup and how great that would be to see him on the same team with Wilson and Ovechkin and Oshie, that kind of thing. Quite something to kind of just daydream about. But Leonard was quick to point out that enjoying the NCAA experience and isn't rushing anything. So he's enjoying his time. He's a young man. Let's give it a break here. I mean, if he wants to put his time in college and do the right thing by him, hey, so be it. He's a young guy. The NHL will wait. Obviously, it's always in the back of your head when you're going to turn pro. And then when you're going to take that next step, that's kind to rush out there, kind of just take it in, soak it all in, and see what happens here. So I don't think he's in any rush. So there has been some talk about there if he would join the team towards the end of the season, if they were, in the playoff push or in the Stanley Cup. I think it's possible, but ultimately I don't think that is something the Capitals would entertain. I think that you would put him in an extremely high risk situation where you're trying to fast track him much quicker than you should. I guess it worked for Tom Wilson, if I remember right, but it's not always a one size fits all. And if you take a look at him, I think that we think just because he's had that great success in the NCAA playing for Boston College, that automatically it will be that same level on the Capitals. And make no mistake about it, I think that he will be a dynamic player, but I don't think that, necessarily we can expect that much. And I don't think it's fair for us to think that we can expect that much from him right away. So my thing is, even if the Capitals make it to the playoffs and say they make a push, that I don't think it's necessarily the right idea to try to rush him. Maybe next fall, see where his head's at, but just kind of based on his words, unless he has a complete change of heart, a complete about face, I think that he will probably play one more year playing for Boston College. I mean, I know that he could be persuaded. Maybe Brian McClellan could say just the right thing to him, even though he said he's not going to rush him. I mean, kind of wink, wink, nod, nod. We could really use you next there, Ryan. But in any event, I'm happy to see his growth as a part of the Capitals' future, and we wish him nothing but the best whichever road he happens to take. If you wanted to join the Capitals in the fall, that's great. If he doesn't, he's a young man. Let's give the guy a break. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we will talk about notes from practice today, who's going to be in the lineup, who's going to be out of the lineup versus the Sabres. I'll discuss straight ahead. We're at the end of the season right now, and let's face it, Capitals fans, there has been some ups and downs, regardless of where we are in the current standings. I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey contests, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Now, let me tell you something, guys. As the NHL playoffs approach here, or maybe you're watching baseball, whatever the case is, say you're not that interested, open up the Sleeper app and get involved with some of the fantasy sports action. I think that you will love it. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Capitals fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So notes from practice. Who's going to be in? Who's going to be out? I'm going to be honest with you here. There is some question about who is ultimately going to be in the lineup versus the Sabres. This is crunch time, guys. There's not a lot of hockey left to play. We need all hands on deck. Who is going to be in the lineup? That is the question. Well, if we can judge by practice today, the Caps are in a great position as far as the playoff picture is concerned, with the Caps sitting in third place in the Metro. Monday's practice was a good opportunity for the Caps to tie up any loose ends before the Caps' schedule intensifies as the end of the season is in view. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago that I was talking about, it's still early in the season or the midway point of the season. We are facing the end of the season, and the Capitals need to be firing on all cylinders. They're in third place, but they can't slip. They can't get complacent. They have to keep their foot squarely on the gas pedal. Nothing's changing with our approach, Carberry said, of the team's ongoing playoff push. Great news for the Capitals' blue line. Rasmus Sandin made his return to practice on Monday after taking Sunday off. His status for Tuesday versus the Sabres is still up in the air based on how he's feeling, Spencer Carberry said. Listen, the Capitals always play better. The blue line is that much better with Rasmus Sandin in the mix. I know that it was nice to see Vinny Iorio out there, but if I had my druthers, I would rather have Rasmus Sandin in the lineup. Is there concern surrounding TJ Oshie? I don't think so. He missed practice today, but it was just a maintenance day. It's a tough thing for TJ Oshie, as we know he is a guy that gets injured quite often, so there was some concern. Was there some kind of nagging injury that flared up? Tom Wilson filled in for TJ Oshie at practice on the top line. Rasmus Sandin and Nick Jensen were paired together. Matthew Phillips, Nicolas Aube-Kubel, and Vincent Iorio were all the extras. Matthew Phillips, again, I've talked about him on the show. I guess he's good as an extra, but I still don't see it. I don't know if I ever will. Nicolas Aube-Kubel is a guy that plays really good sometimes and makes some pretty bad blunders some other times. And Vincent Iorio, listen, he hasn't had a whole lot of opportunity for the Capitals this season, but he figures in to be in the Capitals' long-term plans on the blue line. He hasn't done anything to really sway my opinion one way or another. I do like his game, what I've seen him playing in Hershey last season on the big team. I thought he played well, but he is still a bit of a work in progress. Taking a look at the schedule ahead, they have the Penguins, who, let's be clear here, the Penguins will be out for blood. They will be out for payback against the Capitals. We're going to get you, Capitals. And then the Hurricanes as well. That is not going to be an easy out. It's going to be tough, and Tom Wilson will be making his return soon. There's some good mixed with the bad. I like his physical game. I like his scoring. I don't like his heavy penalty minutes. as we head into the playoffs. And sometimes these games are decided by a goal or two. To have him sitting in the penalty box is not ideal, but I have to, take a look at the good over the bad. Tom Wilson on this team is always that much better. That physical presence, that intimidator, that goal scorer, that leader. If he could just tone back, playing a little bit over the top and being in the penalty box. I know that is kind of part and parcel of being a physical player, is that you get penalized. And I wouldn't want to take that out of his game. But what I'm saying is just playing smart hockey. He's got a lot better. And when I was listening to the Mike Vogel podcast, he talked about playing hockey on his own terms. That just because some fourth line guy that's trying to make a name for himself wants to fight me, I don't have to do that, because that's going to be time in the penalty box that I could not be, helping this team win games. So I think that this is a more mature Tom Wilson. It's interesting that Alex Ovechkin has taken on a bigger physical role in Tom Wilson's absence, a good thing. And I think to a certain extent that Alex Ovechkin feels like I don't need to play that game when Wilson's in the lineup. And it's a good thing ultimately, because we need Alex Ovechkin healthy. It's just interesting that he could kind of, put his finger in the air and say, the pH balance is off here a little bit. I'm going to have to up my physical game. So it'll be a good thing to have Tom Wilson dialed in, back in the lineup here soon, as we need him for crunch time. All things considered, there was a lot of Capitals fans that were ready to wave the white flag, like, oh my God, Tom Wilson's done or suspended here for a while. It's over, put a fork in it. It's done. Not the case. The Capitals have found a way to overcome a lot this year. Backstrom stepping away, Kuznetsov getting traded, those kind of things that for a lot of, other teams, and the Capitals at different points could have been curtains for this team, but they found a way to do it by depth down in Hershey, by certain players stepping up. I think this team is in a good position. They found a way to overcome, and I have a feeling that they will continue to do that when they need to the most. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show a hit. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.